going on, fight fans? So November 21st, we have the fight we've been waiting for. Miguel Cotto versus Canelo Alvarez live at the Mandalay Bay in Las Vegas on HBO pay-per-view for the WBC and Ring Magazine lineal middleweight titles of the world. As I mentioned in the lead-up or the announcement of the fight itself, man, I mean, this is as 50-50 a fight as you can get. And adding the Mexico versus Puerto Rico rivalry to it, man, it just, puts it over the top. Now, for the casual fans, and the general sports fans, I mean, I don't know if they're going to be running to the fences for this fight, but I think for the most part, man, I mean, when you think about the Mexicans and the Puerto Ricans that are going to get behind this fight, and boxing fans in general, I mean, I think this is a big event. And I think when you think about super fights in boxing, this is number 2 right under Mayweather-Pacquiao, and it's kind of crazy that we got both of them in the same year. Now, I don't want to drag this out too much because, I mean, this is a fight that I've been debating back and forth, not only with other people, but with myself, as I've teeter-tottered for the better part of a year as to who I think is going to win this fight, and I believe I have it down packed as far as who I believe will win and what I think will happen in this fight. Now, keys to this fight for Canelo Alvarez, man, is he needs to be 2 things in this fight to have success. Number 1, he has to be a volume puncher. Canelo Alvarez is a boxer puncher, but he's not a guy that is that assertive in the later rounds. He has to throw in the realm of 700 to 750 punches, and on top of that, man, he has to be on top of Cotto all night. He could box Miguel Cotto from range, but the thing with Canelo Alvarez is that he tends not to do that. He likes to get his fighters, or his opponents, I should say, against the ropes, and he likes to just tee off on them. If the fight is in the middle of the ring, I gotta give some of the edge to Cotto just because I think he has better movement, and he's a little more versatile with how he sets up his punches, as well as having really good timing. Now, if you go back to the losses on Miguel Cotto's record, particularly with Manny Pacquiao, with Antonio Margarito, regardless if you look at the Plaster Paris and the Austin Trout fights, they threw a lot of punches on Miguel Cotto. And again, that's a recipe for disaster when you're dealing with now an older Cotto who, again, yes, is smarter, but again, is an older Cotto. And I think we're going to have some questions answered as to whether or not this relationship between Freddie Roach and Cotto, as far as the results, has been a mirage based on the opposition that they faced. You could maybe say the same for Canelo Alvarez for to an extent, but him fighting Erislandy Lara and Floyd Mayweather is, I mean, you really can't knock that. But at the same time, in those 2 fights, I mean, he lost one, and you could argue he might have lost the Lara fight. I had a draw. Miguel Cotto is a different fighter, obviously, altogether, but the difference, I think, with Miguel Cotto in comparison to like Floyd Mayweather and Erislandy Lara is those guys aren't particularly in there to try to hurt their opponent more than to score and win. Where Miguel Cotto will get out of the way of shots, and I like how he's staying tucked in, to kind of evade shots to the chin, though he does have to be careful with Canelo's uppercut. I think with Miguel Cotto is he's able to sidestep, but he's coming back with firepower, and Canelo Alvarez hasn't really seen that. And we've seen him, have trouble against boxers and guys who can move. And while Cotto's not a conventional slickster and things of that nature, he's able to box, but he's able to move, and he's able to land some hard power that I think we'll find out whether or not Canelo's going to respect him or not, because I think that can play a key role into the fight as it progresses into the championship rounds. The X factor in this fight, to me, as I said from the very beginning, when the fight was announced, is the corners. Freddie Roach and Miguel Cotto, again, this partnership is under question based on the level of opposition he's faced, but it's hard to argue that the partnership with Cotto and Freddie Roach has instilled a lot of motivation and a lot of confidence in Cotto that I don't think we've seen in quite a long time. I think when we think about what may happen in each corner if either guy gets hurt, you have to think who's gonna apply the better strategy or the better advice to get back in there after your fighter's hurt or he's down on the cards. Freddie Roach has had that experience. He's had fighters going into the fight that weren't picked to win as early as or as recent as a couple of weeks ago with Postol and Lucas Matisse, who was favored to beat Postol either by knockout or just, a convincing win. Not to compare the fights, obviously, but when you talk about the corners and when you talk about strategies, game plans, you gotta side with the guy who has more experience, and that's obviously Freddie Roach. One thing I saw in the Canelo-Lara fight that concerns me for Canelo is when he's in trouble, his corners seems to be cheerleaders. They're more like cheerleaders than actual trainers that are, or teachers, I should say, that are giving him the type of instructions he needs. And we've seen it in the Mayweather and the Lara fights, where he just kind of either gets frustrated or he just continues to just fight his fight. Like I said before, man, I've teeter-tottered back and forth with this fight because on one end, I look at Canelo Alvarez as the bigger, it's hard to say stronger, because I think Cotto's left hook is the biggest weapon in this fight. But, Canelo Alvarez obviously is the bigger guy, and you got to think punch for punch, does he hit harder than Cotto? We're going to find that out. But he's obviously the naturally bigger guy in this equation. And the younger guy a lot of times gets favored over the younger or the older veteran who's been in more wars than what Canelo has seen. And while this has been a tough fight for me to really get a decisive winner without kind of half-stepping my decision, I gotta go with Cotto in this fight, man. I'm gonna go with the experience. I think one of the factors in this fight that is not being mentioned is that we don't know how Canelo's chin is gonna hold up to Miguel Cotto's left hook. We've seen Cotto in with big punches before in his career. In a couple of fights he fell back, and some other fights he was dropped, came back, and won by knockout. So we've seen him under adversity come back and win. We haven't seen that with Canelo Alvarez, and I think the style matchup, while people may say suits Canelo Alvarez, I think Cotto is going to be the more conditioned fight, the better conditioned fighter in this fight. I think he has better timing. I think he's the better boxer, and I think he has better footwork that through the course of the fight, I think Canelo Alvarez isn't going to be able to land those hard shots because Cotto's not going to be right in front of him. In the case where Cotto does get hit, I don't think he's going to get hit as flush as people think, though I think at times he will get hit. I mean, Cotto's not a virtuoso defender, but I think he's got sneaky defense. You could see Canelo's punches coming where he just winds up. And when Miguel Cotto, as a lot of guys that have faced him have said, it's not that he's fast, but he gets his shots in quicker than you think, and a lot of that has to do with his timing. I got Cotto winning this. Call me crazy, but I think he's going to stop Canelo Alvarez in 11 rounds. I think Canelo is going to get tired down the stretch. I think Cotto's going to attack that body like that Canelo's never felt before in his career. You're going to see, just like in other Canelo Alvarez fights, he's able to get pushed back to the ring, and I think that is a major mistake against Miguel Cotto, and I think he'll capitalize on that. But I think Cotto will box and mix it up, and he'll make it a chess match in a sense that Canelo won't win. And I gotta go with the experienced guy, man. I gotta go with Miguel Cotto in a very good fight, and in a fight that I don't think will be a brawl. It'll be more of a tactical fight. But I'm really looking forward to it, man. Like I said, man, Mexico versus Puerto Rico is always a crazy rivalry, and I have some friends on the West Coast that are Mexican that it doesn't stop. We're gonna be talking about this fight as the weeks progress on the GYGB boxing podcast. The crew split down the middle. We're gonna talk about just all the intangibles leading up to November 21st, and we're gonna obviously at the end do the big round table, make our final predictions, and just go from there. So as I always say, subscribe, hit the links, tune in every Wednesday for the GYGB boxing podcast, 9:30 Eastern Standard Time on TalkShoe.com, and I'll see you soon. Peace.